Our next presenter is Laurie Hurson. So Laurie is an open educational technologist at the Graduate Center's Teaching and Learning Center and a PhD candidate in the Environmental Psychology program. As an open educational technologist, she supports faculty adoption of OER and open teaching platforms that provide opportunities to engage in increasingly open and digital pedagogies. She has taught principles of new media at Baruch College and has a background in faculty development and open source technology support and development.
Hi, that's me. I'm also going to walk around like everybody else. So this has been kind of an amazing day hearing from Karen and Andy and the faculty and students about what's going on with OER work here at CSI. And I've actually been editing my slide presentation the whole time to respond to some of the questions that I've been hearing, because I'm going to be talking about sustaining open work throughout CUNY, and in particular, there's a couple of homegrown CUNY platforms that have been built and developed for and by CUNY faculty to support OER work. But before I get to talking about those, this comes out of the OER initiative that you all are familiar with. But there had been some questions before I even get to the platforms that do open pedagogy about where we find OER. And so I just wanted to point towards a couple of resources that have been developed by other CUNY folks. So this website called Teach OER is a project that was started by the Baruch CTL, but it's actually essentially a repository of repositories, which sounds silly, but you can go to teachoer.org and click on your discipline, English or history, and then this website can show you where to find open resources that you could use in your class. It's going to point you to places like OpenStax that Karen mentioned, but it's also going to point you to places like Merlot, which is a big thing, I think, run out of Cal State. Thank you, Andy. And MIT OpenCourseWare, which is going to have open courses so you can see the entire course that's open. You can borrow assignments from them. You can remix the syllabi that you find. So Teach OER can point you in the direction of where you might find those things on the web. I should have gone forward. So that's just an example of if you click on English, it shows you where you can find other sites that are going to house materials that you might want to use in your course. And then this is Andy's work that I'm just having a slide about. He pointed to it at the end. But this opened.cuny.edu is essentially a repository of OER work that's been going on throughout CUNY. Andy, yell out and correct me if I say anything wrong. But I think what Andy's been working with the OER Commons to kind of aggregate all of the OER courses, OER assignments that have been developed by CUNY professors to share them in one place. So it says, what are you looking for? You can search by subject, you can search by material type, and you'll see what's been going on throughout CUNY. So that's a place that you can start if you're looking for OER to teach with. Those are two really, really good jumping off points to give you some ideas. And that's just kind of directly in response to the things that we've been talking about earlier today. The things that I came to talk about are these two open platforms that have been developed here at CUNY. One is called Manifold Scholarship, which is essentially a publishing and reading platform, and I'm going to explain a little bit more about that. And the CUNY Academic Commons, which is kind of an alternative course platform to something like Blackboard or Lumen that is developed here at CUNY. And Karen had mentioned blogging platforms. The CUNY Academic Commons can do that because it's built on WordPress. So I'll say more about that in a minute. But first I'm going to start by talking about Manifold. So Manifold essentially allows you to create a digital book. I'm not an expert on Manifold. I'm standing in for one of my colleagues, but I'm going to do my best. But what faculty are doing on Manifold is taking texts that are open access. So if you can get an EPUB, which is a version that textbooks sometimes come in, if you've written your own OER with students or without students, with faculty in your department, and it's in a Word doc or it's in a Google Doc, you can upload or ingest it into Manifold and then your students can read it on this platform. So just pointing out, these are some of the featured projects. The Building Open Infrastructure at CUNY was a project that came out of the Graduate Center where graduate students did a literature review of OERs in anthropology or OERs in history. This Structuring Equality book was actually a set of student essays that came out of a class and then were wrapped into a project and turned into a book. So we were talking a little bit earlier about how we do OER creation. This platform can essentially allow you to create an OER textbook with your students or on your own with other faculty. You'll see that there's the Adventures of Huckleberry Finn and selections from Petrarch. Those are public domain texts. So if you're reading a textbook or a book in your course that's been released into the public domain because the copyright has expired, Andy kind of started to touch on that, you can get that text and upload it into Manifold. So what I mean when you upload it into Manifold is there's been a group of graduate students who have been taking public domain texts at the Graduate Center and putting them in Manifold to use. So rather than assigning like Norton's Anthology for literature in an English course, they've been taking all of these texts and turning them into open books. So in particular, Paul Hebert has been uploading a lot of 19th century American literature. And so one of the books here is an example, Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl. So you upload it, you can choose the image, you can choose the title. You'll see here you can either start reading, or I'm not sure if you can read it here, but you can download an ebook. So students can read it on their phone online, but they can also download the book directly from that site for free. And the good thing about this is Paul started doing this because he was really annoyed because he'd be like, hey students, can you buy this book? And they'd buy all different versions. So the translations are different, the editions are different, and he wanted just a standardized edition for his class. So he started creating them in Manifold so students now can all read them together. And the nice thing about Manifold is made to be read on an e-reader or a phone or a tablet like our students are doing their reading. So it looks really good on mobile, and it looks really good on a tablet. And you'll see here, this is what it's going to look like from my computer, but it'll look the same from a phone. And you might be able to see that there's some highlights here. So students can highlight and they can also annotate. So I think Karen had mentioned Hypothesis, which is a social annotation platform. But Manifold allows students to take notes, to highlight. They can choose to see everyone's highlights, or they can just choose to see their own, so if they don't want the text to be too busy. But Paul uses this to have students do close reading, have conversations about the text before they even get to class. And then when he's in class, he pulls up his version of the text and he can read student notes to kind of start the class discussion. So this is both an open text, but it's also starting to touch on the open pedagogy, right, of students being able to directly interact with the text, kind of demonstrate their knowledge and co-construct knowledge around a text before coming into class. So Manifold facilitates both this sort of open publishing, but open teaching and learning for students. The last thing I'll say about Manifold is it's not just a text. You can also embed other resources in it. So we call this the hero slide. It's a similar slide to this, just if you scroll down. And under it, you'll see that there's a resources section. So often when we're using a text, we might have a video that we think goes with this particular text, or we have a primary source. Someone mentioned using primary sources earlier. So you can connect external resources to a particular text and house all of the links to them in Manifold. So when students scroll down, they see this is my text. I could start reading, I can download it, and here's all the resources that my professor wants me to know also go with this text. And the cool thing about it is you can also embed the resource directly in the text. So if a student is reading this particular line, the evening meal at the house is over, and then there's a little green box and it shows the student this is what the primary resource, this is the line that this resource is connected to. So you're directly connecting external resources that you might want students to explore with that line in the text. So this is essentially a multimedia book. You might have told students read this particular passage and then go watch this video. Now you can link them very closely together for your students to be doing outside of class. So this particular project comes directly out of CUNY. Me and my colleagues administer it, run it. I don't develop it, but we have a team of developers who develops it at the Graduate Center who work with us. And so we're hoping that faculty will start using this as an OER resource, start using these books, start looking through it, because the platform can grow and change as more faculty use this resource. There is a ton of documentation, so if you're thinking about exploring Manifold more on your own and getting started, there are directions, and I'm also a resource for you too. But the next thing I want to talk about, this is actually a good lead-in. So this professor chose a set of poems from Petrarch's Canzoniere. I don't teach Italian, so if I said it wrong, I'm sorry. I'm trying. But so there's over 100 poems by Petrarch, and she only wanted to use like 60 of them, so she chose those 60 and put them in Manifold for students to read. She also embedded an audio file so students could listen to the poem being read because it is in Italian. But this is just the book for her class. So she decided she also needed a course site. Where does she put her syllabus? Where does she put the links to this particular book? So she decided to build, rather than using Blackboard, she used an alternative platform called the CUNY Academic Commons, which is the next thing I'm going to talk about. So this website was completely public. Students could pull this website up on their phone, and that when they clicked Canzoniere, which is that green box up at the top, they were taken to the book. When they clicked the course schedule, they could see when their assignments were going to be. And it's similar to Blackboard, but it didn't require a login for students. It was an open platform, and students could see their assignments. I should hurry so we can have questions. But the CUNY Academic Commons is another platform that's developed here at CUNY out of the GC, and it's a WordPress site, and it allows professors to host their courses on the CUNY Commons, either in a site or a group. The Commons was not originally designed to be a teaching platform. It was originally designed to connect faculty across CUNY. As some of you know, when you go to a CUNY conference, you hear about someone at Hunter who's doing very similar research to you, or is doing research in the same neighborhood as you maybe. And there was no way to sort of connect and facilitate those collaborations, so the Commons was really built to support faculty initiatives to build community. But more recently, it's been opened up to allow teaching. So now any faculty throughout all of CUNY and their students can sign up for the Commons, and you can use the Commons as a teaching platform. The way we started this was actually by bringing like 6 faculty in the spring of 2018. And I kind of guided them with the help of my colleagues through starting to teach on the Commons. We used a Commons group, which is what you see here, to talk about how is the Commons working for your teaching? Is it working well? Is it hard? What barriers are you encountering? And then we changed the platform based on what they said. I'm going to actually come back to this slide. But I want to show you 2 of the professors' courses that came out of that faculty development initiative for teaching on the Commons. So this particular professor was teaching a music class at Lehman, and she hosted all of her course materials and things on the Commons. So this was a particular example of week 6. So during week 6, they were studying simplicity and process. And she called her readings overheads, as in the things they needed to do before they went into class. But this word minimalism actually just links to the reading, the same way you would do on Blackboard. And she, because it was a music class, she's able to embed a video of a particular piece of music she wanted students to listen to that week. And then she also had students participate in a collaborative blog. So as part of the class, they would go to a music event in the city, and then they would report on that music event on this blog, which was public. So if they wanted to share their writing publicly and be like, hey, Mom, look what I did, they could. It's not locked into a closed system like Blackboard, but it was also public for other people to see. So some of these students are going to go on to be in music careers, and they'll always be able to go back to this particular place and see what they had written. So there's sort of continuity of access, which is something that's come up earlier today. Students can continue to access their work after the class ends. They can see their writing over a period of time and kind of see how it developed. This is another example of a course site that was run on the Commons, and I'm just giving you an idea of how different these all look. because the professor can choose kind of what the course site looks like. They can choose what goes on the course site. You'll see in this main menu, they have their syllabus, they have their schedule, they have their projects. And in this particular case, students were doing a lot of writing, a lot of blogging, and then eventually they did build their own website as their final project. This takes some scaffolding, but she wanted, part of the class was to develop digital skills, and the WordPress is the platform that this is built on. And WordPress actually runs 1 out of 3 websites on the internet. So the Adidas website, the New York Times website, I think Wired, part of the Wired website runs on WordPress. So students, when they use the Commons in class, they're taking skills with them from your class. They know how WordPress looks in the back end. They've learned the blogging skills from participating in your course, and that's something that they can sort of take with them forward. So, like, how is this OER? Good question. So this platform can change and develop as faculty use it. It's open in that it's open source, which means it doesn't cost anyone any money to use it, and it can it facilitates open pedagogy, that sort of public writing that students are doing. I want to get to this part. I know I'm skipping ahead, but I want to make sure that we have time for questions. So after doing this faculty development programming, what they told us was it was hard to get students on the platform. I didn't know how to make a website, and so I actually had to help faculty through the process of making a website. And I don't know what else is going on through the Commons, what other courses are being run. So what we changed, we worked with the developers to change the system. Now there's just a short 3-step process to get students onto the Commons. And if you're teaching on the Commons, you'll see that there's this teaching template. So you can get a course site spun up that comes with pages for your syllabus, and you just plop your syllabus in. You can and it comes with an assignments location where you can put your assignments. And part of this, in the vein of OER and open pedagogy, if you list your course as public to other folks on the Commons, you can now go look and see who else is teaching a history course on the Commons, who else is teaching at CSI on the Commons. This was the original iteration of our course tab that was just a very long list of all the courses that were being taught. And now, sorry, I'm running out of time. Now, actually coming out like next week, you used to not be able to filter the courses, but now you'll be able to see we have some featured courses, and you can look specifically for CSI, you can look specifically for history, and if the course is available to other CUNY folks, you'll be able to click in and see their syllabus, see the assignments, see if students are blogging or not, and you can get ideas for your own class. So when we were talking about, I'm not sure where to find X, Y, and Z, if professors have listed their courses as open, what they're saying is you can use my assignment, you can remix my assignment for your own class. So in terms of getting started, there's this Teaching on the Commons site, which kind of gives you the getting started steps. What are the things that you need to know? Why would you do open pedagogy or OER teaching? What's the difference between a group and a site? That's something that we had to distinguish when people were joining and teaching on the Commons. So you can check out this Teaching on the Commons site for ideas for getting started. And there's always help. There's me, and then there's also several community team members who I think I might have cut. There's a help button on the Commons, and when you click help and ask a question, I can guarantee you that actually goes to a human. I'm one of those humans, but there's also this Commons support area. So when you search, hey, what's the difference between a page and a post? Your question might be able to be answered by the Commons documentation itself. I'm going to leave it at that for now, and I'll take questions. My slides are here, and it has links to all of the websites and things that I was talking about if you want to check those out more later. Cool. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you for interesting presentation. I just wonder how I can get involved. You know, when you see something new, you're always hesitant. You know,
Yeah.
you don't want to risk something. You know, I might not work and spend time. So I want to know if you organize any conference or anything where somebody from technology gives us the detailed path, how we move to this resource or how we can access this resource.
Yeah, so that's a great question. There's a couple ways, so anyone can join the Commons, and my role at the Graduate Center is to do things like this, where I come and anyone from the CUNY can join the Commons, where I go to different campuses and I'm like, this is a thing that you can use. But if you're interested, I am available to do one-on-one meetings. I do like virtual meetings. And if there's some interest in your department, or there's faculty interest with a group of folks, I will come and I can run a workshop where it's like, we can sit for an hour and I walk you through the exact steps of setting up a site. So it depends on faculty interest, things like that. Yeah.
Just to dig one step deeper, you say if the department is interested, if you have 3 professors interested, would you come and?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's like an onboarding thing. So, and it's great to get a small pocket of interest because it can grow from out of that. Yeah. Yeah.
Hi, Laurie.
Hi.
I've been thinking about creative ways of incorporating live streaming or like live aspects, and I don't know if is there any ways that there might be solutions for that on Active Commons, so like in terms of like using like poll everywhere, or even just with live streaming of the classroom experience, but maybe archiving it somewhere. Is there any like ventures into the liveness of things incorporated into these resources?
Yeah, so the distinction between like doing something synchronously where you're streaming like your classroom to someone who's not there, or just to save?
No, just having a sort of co-creative experience, happening at the same time as maybe like there's an in-person interaction,
Sure.
and then maybe being able to archive that experience.
Sure. The Commons doesn't have that particular technology to facilitate live streaming, but things like Google, Google Air used to be able to do that, and YouTube Live. Sometimes if you have a channel, you can live stream yourself, but the Commons could act as a place where you could save that later. The actual platform's not going to be able to do that, but it can be where you actually put it later. Do you want to add something?
Doesn't Blackboard Collaborate have a way like you can do like live synchronous chatting?
Yes, Blackboard Collaborate can do that.
Can we download that?
I don't know. If it's an MP4, probably. If Blackboard, so that's like the file type.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you can download the Blackboard Collaborate file, you can put it in the Commons. But Blackboard can probably also save that for you too. Yeah.
So you can maybe do Zoom conferences, and you can actually archive and save the Zoom session.
Okay. Oh, awesome. Thank you, guys.
What about the polling feature of just, putting up a poll? I know I dabbled with that in Commons a while back, and I couldn't figure out a way to do it. Is there a possibility to do that?
I'm not sure which polling feature you use. Was it for classroom polling? Or?
We were using it for really a work group, and I was trying to set up just a poll. I think we were trying to schedule a meeting or something to that effect. I know that there's outside resources to do that, but is there a feature within Academic Commons to do that?
I don't think there is. So the Commons uses WordPress, but what WordPress can do is pull in a lot of other external tools. So there might be a plugin that allows you to do polling. I don't know the name of one off the top of my head, but it depends on what you're trying to do. If you have a site, you can probably use a plugin to do that. And you could probably also embed Doodle polling if that's something you're interested to. I'll leave it at that. Other questions? Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Just in general, we have a few minutes. We're actually ahead of schedule for a change. Okay, George.
Yeah, I wonder if we have anybody at CSI technology level, to go and ask questions, like the features I observed from Karen's keynote presentation. It's basically huge, opportunities, but the problem is we don't know what opportunities are there. So I think we need somebody from technology level to explain. You know, you cannot learn it by yourself, or you need a lot of time, which you don't have, unfortunately.
Right. Really great question. It's something that the library's working on, in fact, with having such a position to be able to really have that intersection between kind of library science and technology, which we do every day, and really what would be called an emerging technologies librarian. I think in the meantime, our OER coordinator is probably the one who could either address those questions or also work, of course, with our great OIT staff and everyone who works at Blackboard and some of the other course designers within VP Khan's, Patty Khan's shop has been working on a lot of the initiatives relating to online education, and there's a lot of intersection again with that as well, using the same types of tools. So you're right, and I should add, as I guess we start to wrap up, first thing is I never introduced myself. It's the one thing I always forget. So hi, everybody. As we're closing, I'm introducing myself. Amy Stempler. It's really been a pleasure. We had pretty high expectations for today, and they exceeded them. And we're just really excited and just inspired and hope this is just the beginning. There's a lot of information, I think, as you said, thrown at you. So we should also plug, as I was just about to pull up, that you could see from the brochure. If you didn't get one, please do, because not only is there great information in here, but of course we have a research guide. It's essentially a web page. I think that Christina's going to pull it up right now, which has a lot of the information and links that we already spoke about. Karen, who I believe had to leave, has already said she's going to share her slides with us. So those will be updated and put on our guide, which is really a centralized resource for you to fall back on, as I'm sure a lot of you are trying to take notes and pictures, etc. And so I really wanted to take this opportunity, so here we go. So if you haven't already visited, please look at our, it's essentially just it's a website or research guide that really discusses a lot of the issues that were discussed today, and links to a lot of these resources that our speakers detailed. And so I just want to take this opportunity to, of course, thank all of our wonderful speakers and all of our panelists, and of course also the guest planning committee, Professors Lucia Boyle and Ann Hayes and Elizabeth Yoon, and our outreach librarian, Professor Polgar, who was everybody who just helped put this day together. We hope it's the beginning, because this is the future. And really, there could be a lot of hesitation and apprehension and, maybe generational divides about using technology, but it's not stopping. This is where we're headed, and I think we saw, especially firsthand from our students, how impactful OER is to their student success. And, that's why we're all here. So, and also I think we saw all of the ways in which this could really inspire creativity. I love hearing that, there's already talk of working to have our students develop their coursework or develop their learning outcomes and getting them engaged. So that would go a long way towards their success, towards their retention and getting degrees and all of the stuff that we focus on. I did want to just pull up this. I will have to look at just by the numbers in case anyone was wondering. We're now in our third year of the OER grant, what we assume to be 3 out of a 5 year. So heads up on that for next spring. So at this point, we estimate that we save students over $930,000. So we're almost at $1 million here at CSI, and what we've saved students by the course conversions to using OER. And I know that there's also talk about, in addition to just ZTC, the zero textbook cost, to having the lower textbook cost. So there's, again, this is a fast-moving train, and it's the future, and there's just going to be a lot of great ways to, to support our students. And I think overall we're well over 10 million at CUNY. I think I'm kind of looking around if anybody can confirm that, but well over $10 million throughout CUNY in helping our students, which we know the issues relating to food insecurity, housing insecurity, they're very real. And so this is really just a great way to help our students. So I just want to thank everyone for coming. Continue to contact us at the library, particularly our OER coordinator, who's going to close us out today, as an additional resource, and the guide that you could see up here that could hopefully be a good starting off point. Sure, George.
Yeah, do you have any information how many courses was converted at CSI and what was the cost for saving to?
Yes, we do, because in fact we have to report on those things as part of the grant. So I know there's some infographics that we have on the guide. I don't know if we're going to start fiddling around with that right now, but we could certainly work on that to quantify exactly what you just asked about, because we do have to, as part of the grant, detail all of our achievements. So I'm now going to hand it over to our OER coordinator, Professor Boyle. Thank you all again.
So I, like Amy, forgot to introduce myself earlier today, so I'm Lucia Boyle, the OER coordinator. I just want to thank everyone for coming here today. This was something that we thought was very important to put together. OER is not just something that's continuing to gain momentum here at CSI or even through CUNY. I mean, it's really a nationwide and a global movement that's just continuing to grow. And I think that it's really important to get involved, and now as it's starting to gain that momentum. So if anyone in general has any questions or wants to talk about OER or curious about it, I mean, I am definitely available. All of my information is on that guide and on the website. Please feel free to reach out to me. I'm so happy to work with you and see how the library can support whatever you're hoping to do with OER. And we have a great support system as well throughout CUNY, and I think that it's something that we can really make a very, very big impact for our students, both in terms of finances and even we saw all of the different opportunities to kind of change pedagogy and make things a little bit more exciting. So thank you everyone for coming. If you did have a chance to fill out the assessment form, if you wouldn't mind bringing it back to my colleague Mark or myself, and just thank you very much, and we hope to see you and talk more about OER. So, thank you.